Now, as I'm placing tesserae, I'm trying to keep a bit of a wider than my normal grout line because I want the natural wood surface of the substrate to visually be part of the overall mosaic. So when you're looking at the mosaic straight on, you're also getting little glimpses of the wood substrate too. And something you want to keep in mind if you're creating two mosaics like I am here, and you want them to feel like they're part of a set. So obviously one of the benefits of creating groutless mosaics is that once you're done tiling, pretty much the mosaic is done. Now, of course, there are certain circumstances which we will get to later in this video, but by and large, if you're creating groutless mosaics, when you're done tiling, you're done. And if grouting isn't your thing, then this type of mosaic is right up your alley. Let's get to it. Welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Julie. And on this channel, we talk about tips, tricks, tools, adhesives, materials, and specific mosaic projects, all to shorten your learning curve when it comes to creating mosaic art. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please consider subscribing. The theme of this video, making groutless mosaics, came about for a few reasons. The first being, I kept seeing a recurring theme in the comment sections of my videos. Folks just are interested in learning more about how can they make groutless mosaics. And we'll get to some of the benefits of not grouting your mosaics later in the video. The second reason was because I wanted to take a mosaic with me on a trip and see if I could actually pull it off. And the third reason is because every time I go to my friend's house, I take a few minutes to admire this fun piece that's in her kitchen. It's a groutless mosaic that really draws me in every time I look at it. I always see something new. I think it's so fun and adorable, and I wanted to take inspiration from it and create my own groutless mosaic while on a trip, and I finally had an opportunity to do that. I recently did a video here on my channel where I shared exactly what you should take with you if you want to make mosaics while on a trip, including tesserae selection, substrate ideas, and how to pack it all and get it back safely. So if you're interested, I'll include a link to that video down below in the description. And to clarify, trip means going to a friend's house, going to a local coffee shop, going to a cool park, and yes, getting on a plane, train, or cruise ship. In that video I just referenced, I share how envious I am of people who can take their creative outlet with them on a trip, crocheting, knitting, iPad doodling, coloring in a coloring book, and how I also wanted to feel that sense of enjoyment, productivity, and creativity. So I packed everything up, I took it on a plane with me, and I'm pleasantly surprised with how well everything worked out. In the end, there were some twists and turns, and if you've watched that video, then you know what I'm talking about. But if you are considering going on a trip and bringing your mosaics with you, definitely give that video a view because things didn't go according to plan, but hey, we're artists, we pivot, we're, creative even in our challenges and figuring things out, and it did all work out, right? Because it always does. So obviously one of the benefits of creating groutless mosaics is that once you're done tiling, pretty much the mosaic is done. Now, of course, there are certain circumstances which we will get to later in this video, but by and large, if you're creating groutless mosaics, when you're done tiling, you're done. And if grouting isn't your thing, then this type of mosaic is right up your alley. So in today's video, I'm going to make two groutless mosaic wall arts while on a trip, and I'll also share the benefits of not grouting your mosaic art. Believe it or not, there are some benefits. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. So to get started, let's talk about the materials, which are also called tesserae, and the substrates. As you can see here, I pulled together a mix of materials because I want both of these groutless mosaics to be mixed media mosaics. I wasn't very strategic in what I pulled from my materials stash, which was part of the fun challenge of figuring out how I wanted all of it to come together in a mosaic. So I've got glass tile, plate back stamps, ceramic tile, smalty, vitreous glass tile, stained glass, ceramic heart tiles, glass dots, porcelain tile, and pieces of broken plates, bowls, and cups. And I also pulled a flower mosaic on mesh from my material stash, which I made in a previous video here on my channel. That video is all about how to make different types of flowers on mesh, so I'll include a link to that video down below in the description. Now, as you can see, the flower on mesh is ungrouted, but I didn't want to use it that way. So instead, I wanted it to be grouted, despite the rest of the mosaic being groutless. So in another video here on my channel, I shared how to grout a mosaic on mesh that's not on its final substrate, and I'll also include a link to that video down below in the description as well. I know that including a grouted mosaic in our groutless mosaic projects kind of throws a monkey wrench into things, but I stand by my claim that these are groutless mosaics because in the end, I don't grout them. So if you don't have a small grouted focal like what I'm going to include in one of my mosaic pieces, then you can certainly make one, and I encourage you to reference the video I just mentioned, but also you could use something like the center of a plate or a special piece of stained glass that you'd like to call attention to. Or you could also purchase pre-made tiles that are, things that you enjoy, whether it's hearts or themes that have to do with the ocean or plants and flowers. There are so many beautiful handmade ceramics and pre-cut stained glass pieces that are available that could be considered the focal of your mosaic. Or you don't have to have a focal at all, and you can let your materials do all the talking for you, and you'll see what I mean later in the video. Let's move on and talk about the substrates. There was a little bit of a plot twist. The original substrates I ordered, unfortunately, were delayed and didn't arrive until after I had left on my trip. So I pivoted and went through my substrate stash here in my studio and found two smaller framed wood artist canvases. What I originally ordered was this exact type of substrate, but in a larger 9 by 12 inch size. But I gotta admit, the two smaller pieces actually worked out much better. They were easier to pack, they were quicker to make, and I didn't feel that sense of pressure that I had taken all of this stuff with me, including a larger substrate, and then because of, being busy on a trip, I didn't have time to finish it. So definitely the smaller substrates was the way to go for me. Other substrate options include wood artist frame panel boards in other sizes, a wood tray, a picture frame, coasters, ornaments, cutout wood shapes, smaller wood substrates for wall art like square, circle, rectangle, heart, etc. I adhered the hardware on the backs of the substrates ahead of time, as I like to do, to ensure that the screws won't damage my tile work on the front. I should also mention that the substrates have been prepped for mosaic. And even though I'm not going to grout these pieces, I still needed to do a little prepping. Now, if you aren't sure how to prep your wood substrates for mosaics, I've done a video here on my channel, and I'll include a link to that video down below in the description. And before we get any further in this project, I will include a list with links down below in the description in case you're curious what I use throughout this video. Okay, so it's time for me to get started with tiling. So I set up my temporary workbench We're using workbench in air quotes because it was just two wood TV tray tables in the middle of the living room where we were staying. And I got started by tiling what I knew I wanted to do for sure, which was to adhere the grouted flower on mesh as the star attraction of this first mosaic. I made sure I placed it in a way that was at the top of the substrate. I chose this placement because I also wanted to include 3 ceramic leaf shapes below it. And I made sure to position the flower so that I could tile around 3 of the sides. For the adhesive, I'm using Weld Bond. It's a white glue which dries clear and has a superior hold on a project like this. I also brought a small bag of gray thinset in case I felt the need for a stiffer adhesive. And once I got the flower and leaves adhered to the substrate, I kept going with whatever materials I felt like using. There's absolutely no design or materials choice in mind. I'm just choosing what tile piece feels good or what I think would look nice. Now, my tool of choice is a pair of wheeled glass nippers, which will cut any of the materials I brought with me. And just as a side note here, if you're thinking of getting on a plane with your wheeled glass nippers or your tile nippers or your compound tile nippers, watch the video I previously mentioned about doing mosaics on a trip. Very, very important. Please do yourself a favor and watch that video before you start packing up and planning with whatever mosaics you're going to take with you on a trip. Super important. Okay, so as you can see, I've got materials that are pre-made squares and circles, as well as pieces of broken plates, bowls, and cups, which I mentioned earlier. Now, as I'm placing tesserae, I'm trying to keep a bit of a wider than my normal grout line because I want the natural wood surface of the substrate to visually be part of the overall mosaic. So when you're looking at the mosaic straight on, you're also getting little glimpses of the wood substrate too. The tesserae placement is totally to my personal preference, and if you want to place your tesserae so they're touching or maybe further apart than mine, that's perfectly fine too. Also, as I'm placing tesserae, I'm trying to be very careful not to drag the pieces around on the substrate. So in other words, when the adhesive has dried, I don't want to see the shiny clear adhesive on the substrate. I just want to see the natural wood substrate. I want to keep the adhesive under the tesserae only and allow only the natural wood to be seen when looking at the mosaic. So in other words, I want to keep things clean. There were times when I placed a tile and had to move it or slide it into a different position. And for the spots where I once put a tesserae down and then changed my mind but didn't put another one down in the spot, but left some adhesive on the substrate exposed basically, I waited about 10 minutes and I cleaned it off with a toothpick. You just want to rub back and forth with a toothpick and it comes right off cleanly, sort of in a stringy, rubbery sort of way. And then once I was done tiling this first mosaic, I let it dry for at least 24 hours. So now that the first mosaic is done, I can move on to the second. And my intentions were to start the second mosaic while still in my living room on my little makeshift workbench, and then gather up all my things and take it to a park that we had discovered on this trip. But to be totally honest, I got into such a tiling groove that I just kept going, and before I knew it, I was done tiling the second mosaic. So, I guess that gives me something to look forward to the next time it's warm in that destination. I can plan accordingly and just take everything with the intention of doing it at the park, but anyways, whatever. We pivot. My thinking for this second mosaic was that I wanted the two mosaics to look like they went together, like they were part of a set. So design-wise, I wanted to emphasize the color red, since the first mosaic has that large red flower focal. So I looked through the material stash to see what was left, and I noticed I had a lot of red to choose from. red hearts in a few different ways and sizes. So I had 2 of the red heart tiles, plus I had pieces of a coffee cup which had red hearts in a few different sizes. So this was perfect. I also wanted to make sure that whatever materials I used in the first mosaic that I included in the second mosaic as well. This is important and something you want to keep in mind if you're creating 2 mosaics like I am here and you want them to feel like they're part of a set. So backing up when you're working on your first mosaic. When you're selecting which tessera to be used, depending on how much of a piece you've got, you might want to cut it and put the second piece to the side just to make sure both mosaics have that same pattern, color, or whatever it is represented on both of your mosaics. You can just start a mosaic stash to the side to make sure both mosaics have the same materials represented. They don't have to be identical if you don't want them to be, but there needs to be a little bit of cohesive feel between the materials on both. So I kept the first mosaic close by so I could continue to reference it to see what materials did I use in order to make sure I included them in the second mosaic as well. Now, I'm calling these mosaics groutless mosaics. I know a number of you have mentioned in the comments that you either live in an apartment or a condo and you don't have an outdoor area where you can mix up your grout. I totally understand and I hear you on that. And quite frankly, some of you have shared with me that you prefer not to mess with grout regardless of where you live. Fair enough. So this project probably speaks to you. Now, I could grout these mosaics if I wanted to, but they would be a big challenge to grout because the tesserae are all at different levels. I opted to use one type of adhesive, and because the tesserae are all different thicknesses, the surface level of this mosaic is literally all over the place. And if I decided to grout it instead, the grout would accentuate and exacerbate the fact that the surface level isn't even. And I'm definitely not going to grout these because the whole point of these mosaics is to challenge myself just to tile, include a mix of materials, and not worry about the surface level. But those are the rules I've given to myself. You do you, and you make up your own rules or challenges for your groutless mosaics. Now, why would you want to create groutless mosaics and take mosaics with you on a trip? Oh, there are lots of reasons. This is a fun thing to do on a girls' trip. And you could get away with not needing any cutting tools, and all you'd need to do is pull together a group of materials which are perfectly sized already for your substrates. So this could include tesserae which are squares, circles, flowers, stars, rectangles, teardrops, oval, etc. You have lots and lots of options. Plus, no grouting equals less stress and mess. So you girls could just concentrate on catching up and tiling and just having a good time. No stress, no pressure about tools and grouting. Another great reason to make groutless mosaic art, in addition to us talking about where you live may not be conducive to dealing with the powdery mess of traditional grout, is that more people may be interested in giving mosaics a try. Having to grout a mosaic can be a turnoff for some, so by eliminating that requirement, so to speak, suddenly the environment to create mosaics has less pressure or intimidation, which could make it easier for more folks to give mosaic making a try. Or, if you've been making mosaics for a while, it's a great way for you to introduce others to mosaic making. Think of it as a baby step. Plus, using tesserae, which doesn't require cutting, plus no grouting, equals less steps and gives folks a greater and easier sense of accomplishment. And if you or others you're mosaic making with love it and want to learn more, then you can continue on with learning how to use tools and grouting your projects and that sort of stuff. And once I was done tiling the second mosaic, I let it sit and fully dry for a few days before I needed to pack them both up to fly home. I go into greater detail in the video I referenced earlier where I took everything with me and showed you what you need to do in order to take your mosaics with you on a trip. I go into greater detail about the tesserae, the substrates, the tools situation and all of that. So I do encourage you to check that video out if you are considering taking a mosaic with you, especially if you're going to be getting on a plane. Once I was back home and I got everything unpacked, I needed to finish off these mosaics. Now, because I have prepped the substrates ahead of time, there wasn't much left to do. The first thing though was to sign my artwork. We always sign our artwork, right? And I have a pen that I prefer to use on most of my mosaic pieces. The next thing I needed to do was to add the picture hanging wire to the back of the substrate through the D-rings. Just feed the wire through the rings, making sure the wire is taut enough that when you hang it on the wall, you can't see the wire peeking out above the substrate. I should also mention that these substrates are thick enough to stand up on their own if you just want to display them on a desk or a coffee table or against your kitchen backsplash. I love framed art in the kitchen like that. If the mosaic you made was a gift for someone on your trip, or you were on a girls' trip like we were talking about a little earlier, then make sure you take the picture hanging wire with you so the mosaic can be completed there. Well, that was fun. We got to stay on schedule today. We've got to be done, within the hour. No, I don't like where that's going. The whole time I'm filming this video, I feel like I'm being watched. Let me turn the camera around and show you what I mean. These little food dragons, food dogs, staring at me. Aren't they so cute? They are from China. They were a gift. I love them. But they are staring at me and I'm feeling a little intimidated as I'm filming this video. Come on, girl. You got this. You got this. You got this. That was a little better, but still I'm like, I don't know about that. If you do make groutless mosaics, I would love to hear what you make. Obviously, I gave you lots of substrate ideas and options, but I'd love to hear what you make if you do something like this. So let me know in the comments. Come back to this video and let me know what you made, or if you're in the planning stage, let me know what you're planning to make. I can't wait to hear. I'd love to get some ideas because I definitely want to do more of this. This was perfect on a trip. Perfect. Not having to deal with the grout and just tile and just be in my little mosaic zone. But I appreciate you spending a little bit of your time with me today. And I hope you're doing well. And I'll see you back here real soon. For more mosaic inspiration, check out one of these two videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!